Well, what a win for Texas. It was great until the postgame, and that is one heavy trophy. If those guys, if Vaccaro's having problems lifting this up, I don't think I would have any shot. Matt Brown was very smart and said, yeah, this is for you youngsters. What a Texas comeback, and ended fittingly with those guys carrying the trophy. The very heavy trophy. You guys got any? Did you ever have a trophy like that?
My senior year, of course, the captains, myself, Major Applewhite, along with D.D. Lewis.
I know Major couldn't lift
hoist the trophy, but it was teamwork. You got to say, like, okay, 1, 2, 3. You got to count off like you're lifting a couch or something, right? They did not count that down, and that's why they looked like that.
Okay, my answer is no.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Major, a guy you played with, and let's go ahead and start there. The Texas offense sputtered early on, then really caught fire. Grade Major Applewhite's first game as a Texas play caller.
Well, it's hard because he's not driving his own car. He's in somebody else's car. The seat wasn't adjusted the way that he'd like it to be.
Mirrors all messed up.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So it was quite clear that he was calling somebody else's system. However, at the end of the day, it was a winnable performance. They won the game.
Right.
So I will say this. Major Applewhite, he's very competitive. And what I liked about it most of all, the adjustments. In the second half, they used David Ashmore with his feet, and they got him on the move like this. I believe that was the difference in the ball game, and that's what helped Texas seal the victory.
Sean, did you see anything different with Major Applewhite calling plays than what we saw with Brian Harsin?
Well, I think we did, but I also think we saw him being careful, and he had to be careful because he didn't have a backup quarterback. So I think that's where it was in the first half, and then in the second half, they figured out they needed to get him on the edge. They needed to make sure they could spread him out. David Ash could run the ball, and then once he started running the ball, they were able to call the offense the way they wanted to call the offense, and they found success later on.
Yeah, and guys, it seemed like David Ash was different from the first half to the second half. He looked like he was more comfortable. He was making plays. How much of that do you think was not having Case McCoy looking over his shoulder, and how much of that was maybe Major Applewhite's influence?
I think it had a lot to do with both of those things, but I also think it had to do with his bad performance versus TCU. And then you get benched, and then I've been benched before. I've won some position battles, I've lost some, but I also think it was his ability to run with his feet. And that seemed like it calmed him down. It made him more comfortable. And if you can do that, now he is a dual threat quarterback. I mean, this was one of the most phenomenal plays that I've seen all year long.
Yeah.
And the guy bought time with his feet. So I think
those
were the things. Absolutely. But I think he was still trying to figure out why he had been benched, and he knew that he had to perform well to get a grasp on this job.
Well, I think the other side of that coin also is that this is probably a more comfortable state for him where they're spread out and he can throw the ball probably more reminiscent of what he did in high school. And look, playing a quarterback position, playing on the offense skill sets, you are looking for a place where you are comfortable. And I think that's where he's more comfortable, and that's why he played better.
Guys, a couple of seniors that went out in style. Marquise Goodwin and Alex Okafor. Not sure how much money Goodwin made. I think he'll be making some money. A.O. may have taken himself to a first-round pick. A lot of money was made. Talk about Ahmad as a senior. You've gone out that way. What's the impact for those guys, going out in style?
Well, first off, you go with a good taste in your mouth. But the second part is you leave with the victory. And I do think that as you're preparing yourself to be an NFL prospect and people are looking at your skills, they put so many different things on tape that if I'm an NFL scout, now when I come into Texas and I turn that on before Pro Day, I know Marquise Goodwin can carry the football. I know he can catch the football. And he can certainly be two of the best corners in the Pac-10 going deep vertically. Now, what team in the NFL doesn't want a player like that? And for Alex Okafor, he just completely took over a game. Now, I don't know if you'll see another defensive performance like this from a defensive end for Texas again.
Yeah.
It was that good, and so I think both of those guys proved that they can do a number of things, and they can do them very well.
I think Tony Brackens and Brian Arakpo were impressed with that one. I mean, what stood out to you with their performance?
Yeah, you start looking at the speed like this, Marquise Goodwin, the speed, and you want to be able to not be a track guy who tries to play a little football. You want to be a football player that has track speed. So I think that's good for Marquise Goodwin to be able to separate after the ball's already in the air and get to the ball. With the Okafor piece, I think he may want to write a check to Mike Riley for not putting the tight end up there to at least chip, helped him have an amazing game. But look, he was better. Period. Any way you square it up, he was better than the other guys he was playing against. And the motor he showed doing it play after play after play, he never let up even after all the success, will play big dividends for him.
Chip. I go max protect. I mean, I'm not sure a chip was going to help out with A.O.
He also showed that he's healthy, though.
And a poor right tackle after the third or fourth one, you're looking over there going, come on, man.
That was embarrassing.
I kept waiting for that split to get wider and wider and wider.
Well, we saw some of the young Texas guys really shine. Tevin Jackson played really well. We continue to look at Kendall Thompson. Peter Jenkins, a lot of young linebackers. They had some problems with the linebacker spot this year. With those guys, how impressed were you with the young guys really the last month?
Well, what you saw was young guys that started to understand the system more, but they also gained confidence in their ability to play in the game. Because you don't know what it's like until you get out there and you get those live reps where people are now actually attacking you and trying to game plan you and beat you. Peter Jenkins with an excellent interception. But most of those players you just mentioned are right down the middle where Texas will need them next year if they are going to improve on stopping the run. You got to have that second part and that second line of the defense stacked. And Texas had several players, including Tevin Jackson, that really showed they may be the answer going into 2013.
Sean, did you see growth?
I did see growth, but here's the thing that I think is cool about this linebacking group. They are very, very, very talented. They can be very, very good. And get this, remember that national championship team in 2005? They had Rashad Bobineau. They had Robert Killebrew. I think these guys are probably more talented than that group. They got to get good play up front and then let these guys play downhill, and then they'll be good.
All right, guys, we're going to look ahead as the next couple weeks towards the spring in 2013. But let's go ahead and recap this season. We'll go ahead and start. Let's start with the offense, Ahmad. When you look back at the 2012 season, what is the story going to be about this offense?
Well, I think they were able to score points more than I think most people expected them to. But when the game was on the line, Texas just couldn't quite get it done. You talk about, of course, the West Virginia drive. Well, all you have to do there is just get a snap, and maybe you send your field goal kicker out on and you go into overtime. The fact that you go back to the TCU game, they sputtered, struggled with scoring. And Kansas was even a team that Texas couldn't produce points. So even though they were able to score more points, in some of those games where Texas struggled, the offense just sputtered. So what you'd like to see is one guy take onus of that and say, you know what, that won't happen again because I'm going to be the guy. I will be the playmaker for my team.
Sean, what about the defense? What stands out for the defense this year?
The defense for me, what stood out was probably the play up front and the problem that they got to get confidence. They lost their confidence in that defensive backfield in some ways. They have to get the confidence back because they're the group that came in that didn't play up to expectations. Ahmad talked about the offense, that they played to expectations and they played probably above them. This is the defense that was number 11 coming out of 2011 and finished somewhere in the 70s. So this is not a group that played up to par, even though they're going to have some pretty high draft picks. They're trying to get their confidence back so that they can be the group that they think they can be.
Yeah, kind of an up and down year for Texas. They do finish with a win. And, of course, there were some memorable plays, and we like to do our top 10.
Let's
do this. All right, guys, have some fun. We'll start number 10, Alamo Bowl, fourth quarter. David Ash, we just saw this. This was pretty special.
I don't know. Like I said, I think it was the best play he made all year long, considering the time, the play, him buying time, finding that guy. That was phenomenal.
Dude, and if he doesn't have good technique on this play, getting his hips around, it doesn't work at all.
All right, week 10, this is probably their best win at Texas Tech. Carrington Bindon was close on a couple, and he finally got this one that counted.
Well, those special teams plays go a long way, and Texas didn't have enough of these, in my opinion, to be a great team.
People underestimate the momentum shifts in special teams playing.
That was huge. Horns win that one 31-22. Week 3,
Yikes.
Marquise, if he's even, he's leaving.
This is the tough one because you're on the road, you're at the Grove, at Ole Miss, and everybody was wondering how are they going to play against the quote-unquote SEC team. He's the guy who was balling out, and the Marine went crazy on him.
The Marine's the only guy who was going to stop him, right, AB?
Yeah, no doubt. And it's one of those things, he slows down at the end and is still pulling away from defenders. Marquise Goodwin can flat out fly, and that's just classic right there.
That's
I don't even know what to do with that.
Number 7, week 6, you got West Virginia. Horns down 21-14, and boy, what a play by Alex Okafor. Jackson Jeffcoat recovers. And you felt like at this point, as the jump around went on, Texas was going to win this thing.
Well, and it was your two best players perhaps on the team making that play and making the tide turn.
And here we go, number 6. Sean, if you're looking at 2-7 and D. Johnson, it's probably too late.
Yeah, he's almost, if you're even, you're leaving as well. He's got that speed. He's slowing down here and still making his way against that Baylor defense. That was a momentum shift. It showed him really well.
All right, you're around 4.5 up to 5. Alex Okafor, what a way for the Central Texas kid to go out, flat out dominant.
Yeah, he proved that he was healthy. He proved that one guy can't block him, and it doesn't matter when. And he also made himself a lot of money, and he will go down as a legend with this performance.
And it proved that he had more than one move. His counter actually got him more later in the game.
Yeah, he got the speed and then also the bull rush. We saw the full repertoire from number 80, and we get all 4.5 sacks. Number 4, week number 9 in Lawrence, a nail biter, and boy, Case McCoy came in as the closer. He proved this year he can be a closer.
Yeah, and I also think he kept several people's jobs. I mean, you lose to Kansas on the road. Let's just face it. The state of this program would have been a lot different, and Case McCoy came in after this offense and David Ash had sputtered and saved the day.
Would have been a totally different year without that.
It would have been a totally different year. The season doesn't end the same. I mean, stuff goes real negative if a Kansas is lost there.
All right, let's check out number 3, more late game heroics. This time week 5 in Stillwater, and boy, a lot of questions about David Ash. You felt like a lot were answered after that 4th down completion to DJ Grant.
I think a lot of people felt better about David Ash coming out of this game, and you say, okay, I think we got ourselves a quarterback. I think they learned a lot in this game about David Ash.
And Magic might continue to show he's going to have a big-time junior year.
He was the man. And also, I believe this comeback victory helped them do what they did at Kansas. They knew they could in a late game.
It probably helped in Tech, too. Let's go.
Get it up.
Always fired up. Number 2, another game-winning drive. David Ash to Marquise Goodwin. Just a little hook, and he bit on it, and Marquise was wide open.
I laughed at this one because this was about David Ash throwing to a spot, but it was really about Marquise Goodwin doing a little move and then saying, how fast do I need to get to the ball?
That feeling when you peek in, AB, right?
No, it is, and great timing on this throw. David Ash actually threw it before he came out of his break.
He did. Is there any question what number 1 should and would be to honor Darryl K. Royal? Texas was going to line up in Wishbone, not in a great spot to do it. You're in your own end zone. Brian Harsin, Major Applewhite, the offensive staff, guys, they drew it up. It did a lot. It honored DKR, but it also had a little flash in there.
It had a flash, but it also had the favor of DKR looking down upon this play. It worked for them, and I thought it was a great way to start the game. And this was what set the tone for them to be able to beat Iowa State.
Yeah, the weird part for me was that they were so far backed up, you start to say, can we do this? Can we honor them in this moment? And, of course, they had to, and they were successful, and it did lead to a great feeling within that stadium that day about DKR.
I have to give our crew some credit. I thought that was pretty well done in terms of numbering, and everything made sense. You saw some big plays, and obviously number 1 did need to finish with the Wishbone throwback. The season may be over with, but we're going to be talking a lot of spring football with you guys, so don't go too far, all right?
Absolutely.
Got it.
Appreciate it.
Happy New Year, buddy.